Still friends, you can catch them up at the Florida State Folk Festival at White Springs this weekend. So, I don't know what you're doing for Memorial Day weekend, but if you want to go and catch some of the great music, about 300 acts up at the White Springs at the Florida Folk Festival, you can make your trip up there. I read last week a poem to you called The Tourist Hatch. At least it was the first iteration of it. And I told you, go to parksreece.com, P-A-R-K-S-R-E-E-C-E.com, and go in to his works, and you can search them and type in The Tourist Hatch. And you can see a picture of a fish, it's a brook trout, rising to a naked woman swimming in colorful, and the person is making ripples that go out across a very colorful watery scene. And the fish is rising up, looking at it, trying to figure out what it is, whether to feed or whether not. And this is called The Tourist Hatch. And so here's what got submitted. Brooking no limit on the sex or size of their fun, throwing themselves and money into the big sky, the seasonal hatch awakens a feeding frenzy, only remembering bits and snatches of places, commended itineraries blurred by market imaginations, floating Turons in rich and wrecked paradise. Smells like fish. Locals rise colorfully to feed on invasive exotics, in hot springs and spring creeks overflowing, entangled in a paradox, snagged with a hook and a well-placed line. Yeah, paradox. That works. That's everything that's good seems to have the backside to it. You know, that's just the duality of things. You get people come to see your beautiful nature and enjoy it, and because they're there, it's now overcrowded, and it's not that pristine nature that you so love. So we love things to death a little bit too much. We did that maybe with the Freedom Swim, because let me tell you, I've had to submit for a permit, a marine event permit again, and I was this week at a meeting of the Joint Task Force, Regional Task Force for, and we had the Coast Guard and the City Police and the Sheriff's Department and wildlife folks, enforcement officers, auxiliary people, and volunteer coordinators. And I was there to talk to them about what's going to happen on the 4th of July, Wednesday the 4th of July this year. It's the 20th Freedom Swim, 20th annual Freedom Swim. It started with a handful of us, 13, and now there's a couple of hundred that swim, and lots of boaters, and we look out for one another, and we take care of ourselves. And the last few years, though, we've had application of a permit and then having to deal with it. And I had to go to Tampa a couple of years ago. They wanted us to grease pencil mark everybody that got in and then count them when they got out and have their contact information, and that's just not the way this works. That's not what it's about at all. And so I'm going to have to go to Tampa and deal with it. Well, Freedom Swim this year is at 2 o'clock in the afternoon because the tide is really the tide is an afternoon tide. We've got an incoming tide all morning, and that works against us. And so what we try to do is swim at the slack out and then into the outgoing tide. And that slack high tide happens at 3:30 on the 4th of July this year, according to the tide predictor charts. And so we'll start at 2, it's slacking off, so you work a little bit against it, and then it goes to slack, and you're swimming mostly in slack, and then outgoing tide for the finish of it. And that's what the program is, and the plan, and the hope. And if they tell me that I've got to make conditions that I have to abide by that can't be abided by, then I don't know what's going to happen. You know, if we can't have the event in a coordinated fashion without them taking it over, then maybe people will just swim at their own without a start time, and will just be scattered out across the bay all day. That doesn't seem like that fits with safety concerns as much, but that's what it'll drive us to. Well, I wrote a poem called Swim Free or Die. We're all invited every 4th of July to pour into Charlotte Harbor, into the Peace River, invited to join a welling up of common endeavor, sprung from unbound fervor, shed of stuffed shirt constraint. Swim free of tyranny, free from the do-gooders, of the well-intentioned, those whom would shackle, knowingly or unwittingly, a self-sufficient spirit of adventure to the regimented operational application of studied crowd control techniques with coordinated assets properly deployed, saving us at great cost from ourselves. From our own inner sea, plunged into brackish tea, golden light plays on bathing bodies, fleshy bodies moving, the light moving as the water moves, air to liquid, water to gasp, stroking and kicking, reaching through a baptismal solvent for freedom, for glorious liberty, not freedom on the far shore, but the exhilarating release of the passage, fighting off cramps, pulling and stretching, soaking, stroking, resting, floating, talking about elemental things. Bobbing and treading, awash in the peace, becoming the peace, fed by freedom from convention, from fiscal demands, from accountability's responsible command, celebrating our loved ones cautiously watching, motoring into helpful positions, celebrating no cause but the thing itself, a haphazard passage, a rite of passage, a declaration of independence, of individual responsibility, of indomitable spirit, of meeting the challenge of a long, laughing good time, a brother and sisterhood of community. The Freedom Swim claims the openness of our public areas to fair use without hinder or unwanted help. Let us help ourselves. The Freedom Swim proclaims our natural imagination, expresses our exercised notion of liberty, manifests fundamental principles of our being. So, to the powers that be, here's hoping for a change. Keep your hands off our Freedom Swim. If you like poetry, we've got a YRI at Ed Bender's and Tia Fijalkowski's. That's this Saturday.